अस्सलाम वालेकुम माय डियर फ्रेंड्स ऑफ क्लास 12th। आज हम एक और टॉपिक यूनिट 4 में से डिस्कस करने जा रहे हैं, दैट्स अबाउट स्टूपास। As we have seen that Buddhist ideas and practice which emerged out of the process of dialogue with another traditions or other traditions which include those of Brahmanas, the Jainas and several others. Not all of those ideas which are practiced nowadays were preserved in the texts. जो practice and ideology Buddhists follow करते हैं, all of them are not preserved in the texts. So where are they? Then how we get info about them? These interactions we see in the way in which sacred places can be identified. Some important places. Earliest times से people ने लोगों ने शुरू किया, they tended to regard certain places as sacred, and these include sites having special trees or unique rocks or sites with awe-inspiring natural beauty. इन्हीं sites के साथ we have seen some attached shrines, and these were called as chaityas. If we talk about the word chaitya, it has been derived from the word chita, meaning funeral pyre, and by extension we can call it a funerary mound. Buddhist literature जो है, they mentioned several chaityas, that means several sacred places having attached shrines. They also described places associated with Buddha's life. The place where he was born, they call it Lumbini. The place where he attained enlightenment, they called Bodh Gaya. The place where he gave his first sermon, it is Sarnath. And the place where he attained Nibbana, we call that as Kusanagar. ये सारी places they were treated as sacred places. All of them were treated as regarded as sacred places. अगर हम बात करेंगे about 200 years at the time of Buddha, Ashoka जो है, he erected a pillar at Lumbini. Lumbini means where he was born, to mark the fact that he had sometimes visited the place. Besides, इसके अलावा अगर हम बात करेंगे, there were some places where the relics of Buddha, such as his bodily remains or objects used by him, were buried there. These were mounds known as stupas. Why were stupas built? कोई reason होना चाहिए. Why were they built? इसके अलावा we have found some other places that were regarded as sacred. This was because of the relics or the bodily remain or the object used by him. They were buried. Such places were also treated as sacred. In these sacred places we call them stupas. Tradition तो होता था. Why the erecting of stupas may have been pre-Buddhists. बुद्धिस्ट से आने से पहले भी ये हुआ करता था. लेकिन but later on it came to be associated with Buddhism. Since they contained relics recorded as sacred, the entire stupa came to be venerated as an emblem of both the Buddha and Buddhism. If we talk about the Buddhist texts known as the Ashoka Vanada, Ashoka distributed portions of the Buddha's relics to every important town and ordered the construction of stupas over them. That means Ashoka जो ruler हुआ करता था, we call him Ashoka the Great, उसने ये bodily parts of this Buddhism, या हम बोलेंगे bodily parts of Lord Buddha, distribute among the people, so there is large number of stupas can be built throughout the India. Second century की बात करेंगे तो number of stupas थी इनमें से, which included those at Barhut, Sanchi and Sarnath. अगर हम बोलेंगे how were stupas built, अगर हम inscriptions जो which are found on the railings and pillars of stupas, recorded donations made for building and decorating them. जो some donations हुआ करती थी, they were made by the kings, such as those of Satavahanas. Others were made by other donations were made by guilds, such as those of ivory workers, who financed parts of one of the gateway at Sanchi. इस तरह hundreds of donations were made by women and men who mention their names, sometimes adding the name of the place from where they came, as well as their occupation and name of their relatives. तो वी कैन से जो ये डोनेशंस कैसे पैसा आता था, तो ट्रेडर्स, आम लोग, इवन किंग्स, all participated in building these stupas. Bhikkhus and bhikkhunis also contributed towards building these monuments. स्ट्रक्चर, अगर स्तूपा की बात करेंगे, जो इसका स्ट्रक्चर हुआ करता था, स्तूपा चूंकि एक संस्कृत वर्ड, इट मीन्स अ हीप, कोई बड़ा सा मिला हुआ मटेरियल जहाँ पे जमा हो. ऑरिजिनेटेड एज ए सेमी सर्कुलर माउंड हुआ करता था ऑन ऑफ अर्थ, लेटर कॉल्ड अंदा. ग्रेजुअली इट इवॉल्वड इनटू ए मोर complex structure balancing around and square shapes. Above the anda was the hamika, a balcony like structure that represented the abode of the gods. Arising from the hamika was a mast called the yashti, often surmounted by a chatri umbrella. Around the mount was a railing separating the sacred space from the secular world. जो अर्ली स्तूपास एट सांची में थे और बाहु और बरहूत में थे, were plain except for the stone railings which resembled a bamboo or wooden fence and the gateways which were built. इसी तरह जो अर्ली स्तूपा सांची में था या अमरावती की बात करेंगे, इस तरह they were all built on plan except some having some stone railings. इस तरह each stupa has a history of its own. That means sculpture of stupa were removed from stupas and transported all the way to Europe. इस तरह यहाँ पे हैं sculptures, जो बुद्धिस्ट sculptures थे, they were beautiful and valuable. Sculpture जो सांची में था seems to depict a scene from the story of वसंतरा जयाका. इस तरह अगर इसकी सिंबल की बात करेंगे, many early sculptures जो थे did not show the Buddha in human form. Instead, they showed his presence through symbols. इसी तरह empty seat was meant to indicate the meditation of Buddha and the stupa was meant to represent the Mahaparinirvana. इसी तरह another frequently used symbol was the wheel. This stood for the first sermon of the Buddha, which was delivered at Sarnath. Popular traditions की बात करेंगे, एक sculpture of beautiful woman swinging from the edge of a gateway and she was holding into a tree was the representation of Shala Banjika. Even animals were often used as a symbol of human attribution, like elephants, for example, were depicted to signify strength and wisdom. Another motif is that of a woman surrounded by lotuses and infants, which seems to be a sprinkling water and on her as if performing an abhisheka or consecration. The serpent motif is also found on several pillars. One of the earliest modern art historian, James Ferguson, considered Sanchi to be the center of tree and serpent worship. This was all about today's topic of Stupa. Thank you.